What's up, guys? This is Coach Grant with First Down Training, and today we're going to be breaking down some of the best tips for slower wide receivers. So I hope this video helps you guys out. Hope it could teach you a few new things, but also, fellas, if you're a wide receiver and you need to get faster, check out that very first link in the description below where you could get access to 80+ speed and agility drills. We break down every single drill into categories like running mechanics, plyometrics. We give the exact sets and reps to do, a video example of each drill, and we will put the drills into specific workouts plans for you guys to follow. So if you guys would like to improve your speed, improve your athleticism, again, check out that very first link in the description below. Let's get started with this video. So now, first example we're going to be talking about here is just a simple fade route. Now, I'm not trying to say that this wide receiver is slow, because this wide receiver is faster than a lot of other wide receivers, a highly recruited wide receiver, but he does something on this fade route that every single wide receiver who maybe feels they are not as fast as their competition, the DB that they're lining up against every snap, should do. So let's play this full speed. So he runs this fade route, gives a move, but I want you to pay attention to how long he kept his head down on that route. That is something that so many younger wide receivers struggle with, is that, like, everybody knows, okay, so you come up to the line, you have inside shade press coverage, you have to run a fade route, right? So especially if the DB's fast, the DB being faster than us as a wide receiver is not even the biggest deal in the world, because at the end of the day, he is still starting at a disadvantage. He's got his back turned, he is reading us, and he is guessing on the snap. So if there's like not a huge speed difference, we should be able to run past this guy. If there's a major speed difference, you need to take care of him with your route running, obviously. And this is what ties into that. So everybody knows inside shade. I'm going to attack him inside. My goal is to get him to move, make him think we're running a slant, so we have more space to the outside. Now, this is the mistake receivers will make, and especially slow wide receivers. They'll attack to the inside, get this DB to hold. As soon as they burst to the outside, they start looking back for the ball, because they go, oh, I got him, I want the ball. Guys, that is just going to slow you down, especially if you're on the slower side of things already. If you get separation, you have to keep that separation. So we cannot start looking back for the ball. You see this wide receiver, he keeps his head down for 5, 10, about 15 yards is when he starts to look back for that ball, and he's already got this DB by 2 steps. Like we said, I want to get separation, but I also want to keep separation. So slower wide receivers, we have to keep our head down on deeper routes. If it's a double move, like let's say you're running a hitch and go, don't get the DB on the hitch and then start to look back for the ball. Let's create that separation. We get separation with our breaks, with our releases, and then we keep separation by paying attention to these minor details. So let's play this again, full speed one more time. Again, I'm not saying that this wide receiver is slow, because he's probably quicker than most, but it's something that all slow wide receivers have to do, because the second you look back, you will be slowing down, and that DB will recover, especially if he's faster than us, okay? So now, second thing I want to talk about here is something that all slower wide receivers are going to have to get comfortable with, and that is catching in traffic, or catching while people are grabbing on us, near us, in uncomfortable spots. So I'm going to play this full speed, then we'll break it down. So this is a goal line fade route, right? So assuming that, like, let's say, for example, you know, you're on the slower side of things, I would probably assume you're a bigger wide receiver, right? You're probably on the outside, not the fastest, like slot, smaller type, quick wide receiver. You're on the outside. You probably get a lot of jump ball catches. You probably get a lot of passes thrown over the middle. You know, some people might label you as a possession wide receiver, and that's totally fine. You need guys like that on your team. Now, I'm not saying you want to neglect speed work, because imagine if you had the size, and imagine if you also had the speed and the athleticism. That's a whole nother ballgame. You look at all these like 5-star recruits across the country, they all kind of have that in common. They're freak athletes. They have great size. They can move really well. Like, guys, you are a prospect if you have both of those combined, right? So now let's say you're not. Let's say maybe you're on the slower side of things, you know, and that's, like we said, that's totally fine. You need those types of receivers. You need to work on these types of situations. You see how this wide receiver, the ball's thrown up, he's getting grabbed, right? Ball's thrown over his head. His arm was getting grabbed beforehand, and he catches this thing one-handed. Now, I'm not saying you got to practice this exact catch, but you should probably be working on one-handed catches in traffic, having laid hands over the middle, because you are not going to have the biggest margins of separation as a slower wide receiver. You're just not. That's just not how the game works. You're going up against DBs who are the fastest players on the field for a reason. DBs have to be fast because they are playing a guessing game. They're trying to read off of us. They're trying to build. Their game plan is to read us, right? So they're at a disadvantage. They can't be going full speed every single time. But when they do get beat, they have great recovery speed, because it's inevitable. Wide receivers at a huge advantage on every single snap because we know where we're going and the DB doesn't. So that's why they have to be fast. And if we're not comfortable with these types of catches, we're never going to be comfortable with the DB who's quicker than me. So fellas, I recommend working on this. I think in your routine when you're warming up, maybe you catch 20 balls where it's just like a normal catch. Then maybe you catch 20 with the right hand, 20 with the left hand. You have a partner he maybe puts like a towel around your elbow and he's pulling at your elbow with the towel just to get you used to catching in contact. You have to get comfortable with those types of catches. Not everything is going to be a wide open, easy pass. So let's play this again, full speed one more time. Great example here from this receiver showcasing that catch in traffic that a wide receiver on the slower side of things may have to do. So now, next thing I want to discuss is that if you are a slower wide receiver, and you want to play at the next level, you got to have some kind of physicality to your game. You have to know how to be physical. Like I said, I am assuming that if you're on the slower side of things, this is a situation that we are going to be in. Now, listen, I get every time we talk about, slower wide receivers, skinnier wide receivers, short wide receivers, we get the question, Coach, what if I'm short and what if I am slow and I play wide receiver? I'm going to be completely real with you. That's very, very tough. It is so tough to be undersized and to be slow and try to play that type of position. I'm not saying don't play the position. I'm not saying quit. I would never say that. But I'm saying that you need to work on your speed if you are going to be short. If you were a taller dude, 6'2" plus, you got some weight on you, it's okay if you don't have that kind of speed. But if you're like 5'9", 5'8", and I'm one of those guys too, by the way, I'm not tall either, but I need to have some speed. You have to. If you don't have speed and you are short, it is very, very tough. So I say that first because if you're a slower wide receiver, you have to be physical. And this is a great example. We're going to talk about two great examples here of how you can be physical as a slower wide receiver. So this first release is going to be a shock release. So in the days of, all the wide receiver versus DB one-on-one clips always going viral, you see the ones that go the most viral are the ones where receivers, will do this crazy release, fast feet, make a DB jump, and then they go, right? So if you're on a slower side of things, that's probably not going to be our game, right? Our game is not going to be doing that fancy, quick feet, foot fire type release. It's great for the shorter, quicker guys, but for the taller, bigger, slower guys, maybe not the best thing that I can use. So this is something that you could use when you're facing a DB who might be quicker than you, but you're stronger than him and you're more physical than him. So a shock release is this. You pretty much just shock the DB right off the ball. You get hands on him. It's almost like a block, right? Everybody loves to say this is like the George Pickens release because that's all he does. This is not a flag either. You will not get called for this. There is no difference of doing this release and hand fighting with the DB when he is pressing you, right? I post about this stuff and I get all kinds of DMs from people who think they're officials and think they're referees and will say, oh, stop teaching this. This is going to be a flag. Guys, what is the difference between this release and fighting somebody's hands off the line? There is no difference, guys. So it's not a flag. It's not offensive pass interference. It's not illegal. Probably don't hit the guy in the face and put your hands in his face mask, but treat it almost like a block, guys. You could fake block on plays too. You see it all the time. Receivers will fake a block like they're running a screen and then they'll turn upfield and score. So guys, it's not a flag. All right, so now, shock release. I would teach it the exact same way. It's a quick punch with both hands as a wide receiver. Not a punch, obviously, but it's just a quick, jam with those hands almost. Like how a DB would jam us. And you guys want to be low. You guys want to drive from your legs, and you want to keep your feet active. Very similar to how you would block a DB in a run game. So you get lower than him, you drive up, you keep those feet moving, and you just pretty much shock him right off the line. Then we can go get up into my route. So if you're not that speedy, quick guy right off the line that's got fancy footwork, this is a great release you could do when you know you're bigger and when you know you're stronger than the guy. That's why I gave my spiel in the beginning of this about being short and slow, because shorter guys are not going to be stronger than this guy usually. Usually DB's got some size, they got some length. You may not be able to muscle them off the ball, but if you're bigger, stronger, this is when I recommend it if you're on the slower side. So let's play this thing again, full speed one more time. Great job with that receiver with the shock release and then winning on this out route. So now this next example here is from a receiver, and I honestly just want to talk about just hand-to-hand combat as a bigger wide receiver, right? So you want to try to hit something called the point of control. So I think everybody knows how to fight hands off the line of scrimmage, right? So let's say you got a DB who's pressing you and you want to get to the inside, right? So which hand of the DB is going to prevent you from an inside release? It's going to be his inside hand, right? So that is the hand that we have to focus on beating. If he gets hands on us with the outside, but we're still able to take the inside release, who cares? A DB's goal when he gets hands on us is to disrupt timing with the quarterback. So if we can just get off the ball and we can get off the ball fast, we don't disrupt timing. But again, as a physical wide receiver, that hand combat, and slower guy, bigger guy, more physical guy, that hand combat can lead to separation. Now, again, you want to attack the points of control. So what are those? So let's play this thing full speed. Let's watch what this receiver does. He attacks the outside, and he swats this DB's arm off, and he's able to win on a slant. So the points of control, I think, there are 3 areas. And I'm sure all of you are familiar with like a throw-by move at the top of the break too. Like let's say this receiver was going to go run a dig, and the DB was right here, and he slips under him, and he swats him by at the break point. There are 3 points that I would like to attack. Number 1, back of the shoulder. I think that's one of the most important points of control, especially if you guys are a little bit closer together than this. If you can't get the back of the shoulder, don't worry. I personally like the back of the hip as well. I think it's subtle. I don't think you can extend, because sometimes at the top of the route, if you're using like a throw-by move and you push him in the back, it may not be called, but like good chance it's going to get called. You know what I mean? So you want to try to keep it as subtle as possible. So I like back of the shoulder, back of the hip, or back of the arm or the elbow. Elbow and arm that's kind of a range where you want to try to be in. I don't like the wrist. I don't like trying to hit the elbow, or the elbow is okay. I would say more so wrist and hands, actually, just because I feel like it's less likely for you to hit it. It's not as big of surface area. So those are the points of control: shoulder, hip, back of the arm. And if you guys can get comfortable swatting there when you're being physical off the line, that can get you separation. And then obviously we do the things that we know to do from the first example: accelerate out and keep that space. Let's play this thing again, full speed one more time. Great job of this receiver being patient off the ball and then swatting at that point of control to show what a slower wide receiver can do to be more physical. All right, fellas, I really want to thank you for watching. I really appreciate it. If you have any questions at all, don't hesitate to leave those in the comment section below. Always appreciate the feedback. It's always great to hear from you guys. And again, fellas, if you would like to get faster and want to work on your speed, check out that very first link in the description below, where you could get access to 75, 80-plus speed and agility drills. Again, very first link in that description below. I'll see you guys next time.